Some decisions are never meant to be remembered. They are written down, approved, and then quietly sealed away. In the final year of the Second World War, one such operation was prepared in silence. It never appeared in newspapers. And it was never officially denied. In 1945, inside secure government facilities in the United States, a classified operation moved forward without public awareness. It was authorized during the uncertain transition between war and peace. Few outside a narrow circle knew its purpose. Even fewer understood what would happen if it moved forward. By early 1945, the United States stood at a historical crossroads. The war in Europe was nearing its end, and the Pacific conflict showed signs of approaching resolution. Yet inside Washington, uncertainty dominated strategic planning. Military leaders and intelligence officials no longer focused solely on winning the war. They were already preparing for what came after. Victory created new fears. Allies could become rivals. Scientific knowledge had shifted the balance of power. Intelligence agencies expanded rapidly, absorbing new authority under the justification of national security. Secrecy became routine. Decisions once debated publicly were now confined to windowless rooms. Within this atmosphere, a classified operation was proposed. It carried no dramatic codename meant for morale or propaganda. It was identified only through internal references. Its purpose was not combat. It was control. The operation aimed to manage information, personnel, and technological assets connected to the final phase of the war. Officials feared that certain wartime activities, if exposed, could destabilize the fragile post-war order. There were concerns about public reaction, about political accountability, about international consequences. Planning documents emphasized discretion above all else. The operation would be executed entirely on American soil. It would involve military officers, intelligence analysts, and civilian contractors sworn to permanent secrecy. No foreign troops were involved. No allies were informed. Facilities were selected in remote areas. Existing military bases were repurposed quietly. Personnel were transferred under vague orders. Families were given limited explanations. Records were fragmented intentionally, distributed across departments so no single archive told the full story. At its core, the operation focused on containment. Certain materials, documents, and individuals were to be isolated from public access. Some were relocated. Others were reassigned under new identities. A small number simply disappeared from official records. This was not presented as an extraordinary act. To those involved, it was described as a necessary administrative measure. A temporary solution during a delicate transition. The phrase national stability appeared repeatedly in internal memos. As preparations continued, the operation gained momentum. Timelines were drafted. Security protocols tightened. Armed guards were assigned to locations that had never required them before. Every step was documented. Every document was classified. Yet even as it moved forward, doubts emerged. Some officials questioned the long-term implications. Others worried about legal authority. A few warned that secrecy on this scale carried its own risks. Those concerns were noted, then archived. As the spring of 1945 progressed, the operation entered its active phase. Orders were issued through indirect channels. Language was deliberately ambiguous. Personnel were instructed to follow procedures without context. Military trucks moved at night. Unmarked crates were transferred between facilities. Entire rooms were sealed and removed from use. Access lists were shortened repeatedly. Each revision excluded more people. the intelligence community played a central role. Analysts compiled reports assessing public reaction scenarios if the operation were exposed. None of those scenarios were favorable. Civil unrest, congressional inquiries, international suspicion. The conclusion was consistent. Silence was safer. Key decisions were made quickly. Oversight committees were bypassed under emergency authority still justified by wartime conditions. Legal advisors framed the operation as a continuation of existing defense measures, not a new initiative. This distinction mattered on paper. Individuals associated with sensitive wartime programs were summoned for reassignment. Some were cooperative. Others were confused. A few resisted. Resistance was documented, then neutralized through administrative means. The operation's scope expanded quietly. What began as a limited containment effort grew into a broader system of information suppression. Files were reclassified at higher levels. References were removed from indexes. Cross-departmental links were severed. Inside the facilities, tension increased. Personnel noticed inconsistencies. Names changed. Records vanished overnight. Questions were discouraged. Silence became the unspoken rule. Outside, the country celebrated approaching victory. Newspapers spoke of peace. Soldiers prepared to return home. Parades were planned. The contrast was sharp. Within internal meetings, concerns resurfaced. Some officers argued the operation had exceeded its original mandate. Others insisted reversal was impossible. Too many steps had already been taken. Exposure now would be catastrophic. A critical decision followed. The operation would not conclude as planned. Instead, it would be absorbed into permanent classification. No final report would be issued. No closure acknowledged. From that moment, the goal shifted. It was no longer about managing the transition from war. It became about erasing the transition itself. Documents referencing the operation were split. Some were sealed indefinitely. Others were destroyed. A few were misfiled deliberately under unrelated categories. Personnel were reassigned again. Some left government service entirely. Others continued their careers, carrying knowledge they could never discuss. By late summer, the operation no longer existed in any official sense. It had not failed. It had simply vanished. The climax of the operation did not arrive with urgency or spectacle. It came quietly, through paperwork and silence. In the closing months of 1945, senior officials conducted a final internal assessment. It was not announced. Attendance was limited. No external observers were present. The discussion focused on risk, not outcome. By that point, the operation had moved too far to be reversed. What troubled decision-makers most was not what had been done, but what exposure would mean. Acknowledgment would raise questions that could not be answered without revealing deeper layers of wartime activity. The conclusion was unanimous. The operation would not be completed. It would be erased. Orders were issued to dismantle its visible structure. Facilities involved were returned to routine use. Security details were withdrawn. Signs of restricted access disappeared. Equipment was reassigned without explanation. The most sensitive action concerned people. Officers and specialists who possessed full knowledge were separated from one another. Some were transferred to distant posts. Others left government service entirely. Their departures appeared ordinary on record. Promotions, resignations, reassignments. Documentation followed the same pattern. Central files were broken apart. Supporting materials were reclassified under unrelated programs. Cross-references were removed. What remained could no longer form a coherent account. No final report summarized the operation. No closing memorandum marked its conclusion. Without an official end, there was nothing to reference, nothing to investigate. Within months, newer priorities replaced it. The country shifted focus. Reconstruction. New alliances. New threats. The operation faded behind layers of emerging secrecy. By the time questions might have been asked, the trail no longer existed. The operation did not collapse under scrutiny. It dissolved by design. The operation ended without a formal conclusion, without a closing statement, and without any public acknowledgment that it had ever existed. There was no final directive issued, no document summarizing what had been done, and no record explaining why it had quietly disappeared from internal discussions. Over time, its name ceased to appear in correspondence, and eventually it stopped appearing in memory at all. Files connected to it were sealed under higher classifications, separated into unrelated archives, or removed entirely through routine administrative procedures that left no obvious trace. What remained were isolated fragments, stripped of context and incapable of telling a complete story. Those who had been involved continued forward. Some stayed within government institutions, advancing through ordinary career paths. Others transitioned into civilian life, their wartime roles reduced to vague references or omitted altogether. None of their records reflected the full scope of what they had known. The facilities once associated with the operation were repurposed. Offices were reassigned. Storage rooms were emptied. Security measures were relaxed. Nothing remained to indicate that anything unusual had ever taken place within those walls. As years passed, new priorities reshaped national attention. Emerging threats, new alliances, and fresh classifications filled the space where questions might have formed. Later analysts occasionally encountered inconsistencies, but without context, those gaps appeared insignificant and were rarely pursued. The operation survived only as an absence within official history. It was neither acknowledged nor denied. It was not remembered as a failure or preserved as a success. It simply faded, through silence, routine decisions, and time, until even its absence felt natural. And that was how it disappeared. If this story mattered to you, consider subscribing. More forgotten history is coming.